Let me know if you're able to see my screen. So today's
Yeah,
topic,
yes.
yeah. So today's topic we'll be covering about rules and its types. This is the first topic that we'll be covering today. Followed by we'll be checking what is a rule set, what is rule set version, which we already discussed yesterday, but we'll be getting clear picture today. And followed by this one, we have validation types. What is the validation? What is an application validation? What's a rule set validation? Which one we need to prefer? And the last topic for the day is developer actions. That is checkout, check-in, and private edit. Okay, these are the four topics that we'll be covering today. So let's talk about rules and its types. Okay, what is a rule? So any source code that you develop in Pega falls under rules. Okay, rules are nothing but an action item that you need to take in Pega. You need to configure that as a rule. Okay, in Java, if you consider, we have different properties, different functions. The way you develop Java code, where you will be using the properties, you will be using functions, you will be using libraries. In a similar way, what are things that you use in Java? The terminology wise, we use those things as rules in Pega. Okay, so it's very important for us to understand which type of the rule we need to select. If we can see the screenshot attached here, starting from application validation to user interface, these all are the rule types. So application definition is a rule type which contains different types of rules in it, followed by data model, followed by decision. So if you can see from application definition to user interface, these are all the rule types which contains different rules. Let's talk about data model. Application definition is something which we talked yesterday. That is an application. If you create an application, whenever you create an application, application rule will be created. Data model rule is something which we'll be using it for storing some details into the Pega database. The best example is storing the customer details or storing the employee details, for which we'll be configuring the data model. Inside data model, we'll be having properties, which we'll be discussing in separate lecture. Today's main idea is to understand what are the types that are present in Pega. Individual items we'll be discussing in the future classes. For now, just understand the types. Talking about decision in the sense, let's consider there is a business scenario where you want to provide some business use case for the premium customers. If there are premier customers, you want to have a separate logic for to build. Let's consider while getting a bank loan, we'll be having different interest loans depending upon the field that they work. If we consider for government employee, they'll be charging around 4% of home loan interest. But if that person belongs to private sector, they will be charging from 8.75. Correct. So that is decision is depending upon the logic. There comes a decision rule type. If you can see integration connectors, integration mappings, integration resources, and integration services, these all are the things which you are integrating with the third party system. Either Pega is providing the service to the third party, or we are consuming the service from the third party. If you want to integrate with the third party system, we'll be using all four these rules. Okay, clear. Application definition is a rule which will be created automatically whenever you create an application. Data model is a rule where if you want to store some data into the Pega database, we'll be creating a data model. Example, employee details, customer details, etc. Decision, if you want to provide some special privilege to customers depending upon the type, we can use decision types. Integrations is something if you want to integrate with the third party system, either if you want to consume it or if you want to provide the service to them, we'll be using integration as a service type, a rule type. Now coming to the organization. Organization is more related about organizing the operator profiles. It can be creation of an operator ID, creating an organization layer, unit layer, division layer. Okay. So for every operator, it's very important for you to assign either it's very important for you to assign organization, which organization does he belongs to, which division he belongs to, and which unit he belongs to. So organization comes into picture where if you want to create any operator ID, if you want to create any unit, if you want to create any division, we can create it from the organization rule type. Coming to the process. Process is something, let's consider you are having four screens. Correct. If you are having four screens, the first screen is you are entering the customer details. After you enter the customer details, you are collecting the government ID proofs. If you consider for the bank loan, first you will be asking the customer to enter his details. Later you will be asking his ID proofs, ID proof. Then you will be asking for pay slips. You will be checking the CIBIL score. You can see this is the process that we define. The first stage should follow this process. Second stage should contain this process. So whatever the flow that you are defining, that falls under the process rule. Okay. Now if we talk about the reports, reports is nothing but if you want to get the employee, if you want to get the loan amount, of the users who is which they have taken more than 10 lakhs. If we consider there are 100 people who have taken loan from the bank, if we want to fetch the number of people who have taken more than 10 lakhs, we can use reports at that time. Or if you want to get the number of users who got the loan after 1st of January. So depending upon condition, if you want to fetch the reports from the internal database that is present in Pega, we can use reports. Reports is nothing but you will be creating a filter conditions from which you will be getting the data from the data model. It's not only from data model, it can be from any data that is present. Either that can be an internal Pega database or that can be an external Pega database. At that time, we'll be using reports. Now talking about security. Security in the sense, whenever you log into any application, can be any application, Amazon, if you're logging with Netflix, Amazon Prime, what happens? The first screen that you will be getting is the login screen. It will be asking for either email ID or phone number. It will ask for the password. The way that you're configuring the security, so it can be an authentication or authorization that falls under security privilege. Okay, you can define the security tab in such a way that you can provide some privileges for some different individuals. It's nothing but accessing an application, in which ways you want to access that application can be configured in security rule type. Okay, survey is not that much important for us. Sysadmin is a kind of security as well. Sysadmin will be getting more things, like in sysadmin you will be getting authentication types, where if you want to use the authentication as SSO, you need to configure the authentication service. And in sysadmin we have many features where you have the all the background agents. It can be background process like job schedulers, queue process. So we have different rule types that comes under sysadmin. Sysadmin is very important, which we'll be learning in the next classes. Now talking about technical. Technical is something which will talk about the automation things. It can be an activity which you will be creating it. We'll be talking about that lecture also. The last is the user interface, which means that if you want to have your application design, if you want to have your application design in something, if you want to develop a screen, how do you want to look that screen, that can be configured in user interface. If you want to have a look and feel, if you want to modify your look and feel, then it's very important for you to configure a user interface where you will be modifying the screen that needs to be looked for the end user. Okay, so this is about the rules and rules types. Then what is the right stack that you need to select? So whenever you create any rule, it's very important for you to select the right stack. What does this right stack mean? If you consider, if your application is having 4 rule sets, okay. Yesterday, if you have seen, we are in our application. Let me open that application. This is the application which we have configured yesterday, the first bank. If you open the definition of this application, you can see it contains 4 rule sets that all created by Pega. So when you create any rule, it's very important for you to understand which rule that falls under. Either it should go to this rule set, or it should go to this rule set, or it should go to this rule set. So it depends upon your requirement. If it is related to the implementation class, if it is related to the top class, where you will be placing it in the first and two. And if it is related to the integration systems, if you are integrating the third party systems, and if that tool you're configuring it, you'll be keeping it here. And if you want that to be used by multiple implementation layers, then it will go and sit in the organization. This is the organization class. Similarly, in organization integration layer, it's also very important for you to understand not only the rule set part, you need to also finalize the class for which it needs to belong. If you click on App Explorer, you can see this is the class structure of this application, right? You can place the rule here, or you can place the rule here, right? We have this class. You can place the rule here. Let me pin this. You can place the rule here as well. What else we have? This is organization, right? We have this class. We can see here we are having these classes. I've just taken 4 classes here. Whenever you are creating any rule, it's also very important, if you have selected rule set version, the correct rule set you have selected it, it's also very important for you to finalize the class which does the rule belong to. Okay, you need to select the rule set along with the class. In our case, let's consider we're having 4 classes. Okay, if you want to create the rule in the highest hierarchy, highest class, it means that if you want to have that rule in the implementation class and you don't want that to be used in these classes, you can see this is the top class. In this top class, if you create any rule, this rule cannot be used by this rule, because it is we have called it in the top class. Let's consider if there is a rule that is created in this class, then you can call that rule here, then you can call the rule in the top layer as well. So it's very important for you to understand, if you are creating any rule, if there is a chance for reusability of the tool in other classes, then you will be defining it in the lower class. Lower class in this, either it can be FIRS or FIRS first bank. If there is a need for which you don't want that rule to be reused by any other classes, okay, you want that rule for specific for the class which cannot be reused by the below layers, then you will be creating it in the top layer. It all depends upon the requirement for which we'll be understanding in the future classes. Whenever we will be configuring our first case type tomorrow, later we'll be working on the stories. At that time, we will be having some clear picture on which category of the rule does this class belongs to. So which class we need to select, it all depends upon the situation or the story that we got assigned to. For now, just understand, if we are creating any rule, it's very important for you to select the right application stack. Along with that, it's very important for you to select the right class. Okay, these are the two things which are very important while you create any rule. I hope I'm clear. If you're having any doubts, let me know so that I can solve the problem right away and we can move to the next section. Okay, let's understand PZ and INS key of the rule. We have a separate lecture of the PZ INS key where we will be finding out how the PZ INS key is created by Pega, what is the structure of PZ INS key. But for now, just understand what is a PZ INS key, because this is very important for our next classes. If we talk about PZ INS key, PZ INS key is a unique key of any rule. If you create any rule in the Pega, Pega will automatically create some attributes called PY. It will create PY attributes, PX attributes, and PZ attributes. PZ attributes is a key. PZ ANS key is a value which will provide as a unique identifier for any rule. No two rules can have the same PZ ANS key. No two rules will have the same PZ ANS key. The reason being, if you want to identify any rule, it's very important for us to have a unique identifier. That's why Pega created PZ ANS key for us. This will act as a unique identifier. If you want to differentiate any rule, we'll be getting it from PZ ANS key. How to view the PZ ANS key, where we can get the PZ ANS key, I will show you. There's a simple trick that you can do. If we go to any rule, if I open any rule, if you go here, we have configured different rules here, right? Just open any rule. We have an option actions tab, which we will be talking in this class itself. If you go to view XML, these are the attributes which Pega created. If you can see the PY attributes, PX attributes, PZ attributes. These are all the things which Pega create automatically when we perform any action. If we go and search with the precedence key, you can see this is the precedence key of this rule. As mentioned, no two Pega rules can have the same precedence key. You can find, even if it is having this, even if the rule is there in the same rule set in different versions, there will be a timestamp which will differentiate it. You'll be having a timestamp which will be not same for everyone, right? That's the reason why Pega creates a precedence key, so that if you can differentiate the rule depending upon the precedence key. This is how you can find a precedence key for any rule. You can just click on actions, go to XML. You can find all the PY, PZ, PX attributes. If you can see here, the best thing that you can find, that you can also find PX created. So when this rule got created, if you want to have an updated, when this rule got updated. So we have multiple attributes which Pega create. Whenever you modify it, whenever you update anything, okay, each and everything will be stored into the view XML tab. Now if I go back to the next thing, that is actions and save tab, this is very important. Let's understand what are the things that we can get from the actions tab. If we go back to the rule again, let's check this rule itself. If you can see here, with this are having only very less. Let me open any rule which we created yesterday, or else let's take any activity. So you can see here we have actions tab. Let's understand what are things that we have from the actions tab. The first thing is the run. So if you want to execute any rule, you can use run feature. Just if you click run here, you can execute this one. It will open a pop-up window where we have three options here. The first option will be the clipboard. The second option is a trace, and third option is run. You can directly execute this activity by providing some parameters. If you can see here, this activity is accepting some parameters. You can pass these parameters and execute the code. And if you feel that there is some error, okay, there is some error, what happens? You can trace it. So for debugging, we'll be having clipboard, tracer, and live UI. If you want to trace the session, let's consider this activity is failing at some step. You don't know which step it's getting failed. At that time, what you will be doing it, you will be turning on the tracer, will be turning on the tracer, and will be executing some rule. You'll be just executing it. If it fails in any step, you'll get to know from the tracer. If you can see, we got some error here. Go back to the tracer. You can see I lost it. Let me click on the rule trace again. Yeah. If you got any failures here, it will show as a failed status, which we'll be discussing it. So just understand tracer is a debugging tool. If some error happens in the backend, if you want to find at which step the rule got failed, you can use the tracer feature to check it. The clipboard is also other debugging tool where if you want to find whether the property is mapped to the particular instance or not, you can use the clipboard. We are having separate lecture on clipboard and tracer. For now, this is about run tab in actions. Next we have preview. If you click preview, you can see these are all the steps which are defined as a description. If you go here, we are having how many steps? We are having 19 steps. Okay. For you to have an easy understanding, if you can just click on preview, actions preview, you'll get know what is the first step that's getting executed. It will Pega will create a preview for each and every rule. For 90% of rules, Pega will create it so that you will understand what is the first step that is being called, what is the second step. So it will create a kind of context which helps the user to understand. This is the preview tab. Next, if you go back to the trace is something which we already discussed. Refresh is something if you make any changes, if you want to refresh, you can just refresh it. It will refresh this current rule. Search rule, this is very important. This we will be using it for sure. Let's consider you are having this many steps, 19 steps. You are not sure if you want to search for any other property. Let's consider we have a property set here. If I want to search what is the value, I don't know where exactly this is being called. Instead of you going and moving out for each and every step, if you are expanding, this will take some time, right? If you know that rule from here, you can search it here. Pega will provide you or locate the instance where exactly it is being used. Correct? You got it here. So that's how the search rule functionality works. If you're having multiple steps, instead of you opening each and every step to identify where exactly it's called, you can just search the property if you know it, and you can locate it directly because Pega provides the search rule feature. Clear? Next we have add to favorites. If you click add to favorites, if you can see here we have a favorite tabs. Usually favorite tabs are used like if you are working on a particular instance, okay, either if you are working in a production environment where you need to run this activity multiple times whenever you want to modify anything. Okay, you can just add that action, you can just add it to your favorites. Instead of you searching for that tool every time, you can view it from here. If you search it, if you give it to add to favorites, I'm giving add to favorites here. You just refresh it here. Every time you're searching that tool, you will be having that tool here. You can see we have this activity dependencies. Move to the favorites tab. Instead of you searching it directly here, you can directly open your favorites and open that tool. This is about favorites tab. Then if you go to the other tab, that is we have view references. What is this view references called? View references are nothing but where exactly this activity is being used. Okay, if there are multiple roles in Pega, you don't know where exactly this activity is being called, or which activity is using this. Simple terms, let's consider this activity is present in or called in 10 different rules. Okay, to identify the reference where exactly this activity is used, you just can open to the actions, go to actions, click view references. You can find all the references of this rule. Ideally, you can do it like this, or you can directly search this activity from here. You can search from here. Instead of you having it as contents, you can give all content here. It will provide you all the content of that activity that is being used. What are the things that you can see here? That all comes, or that all we can all find. We can find all of them here. If you can see, we're having 4 here. The same thing you can find it here. There is no difference if you're giving all content and searching it from here, or also if you're weaving it from view references, they both are same. Okay. Then we have versions.
What is it? Reference rules in view reference.
New references. We want reference rules, right? If you click reference rules, if you can see, if you open this function, let me open both of them. I will open both of them to have a clear picture here. If you go back to the declare trigger, you can see this activity is being called here. Okay, this activity is calling this activity. This comes under the references. We go back here, referencing rules. Okay, this activity is referring this rule. Reference rules, if I open any function, which I opened it here, maybe in Java, or alias, instead of opening it any function, let's open the simple thing, maybe the property. If in the backend, if this rule is being used, if this property in the backend is using this, is it calling, if it is calling this rule in the backend, it can be a function or it can be any property and it can be any class, then you will be getting in the reference rules. For that one to understand clearly, we have an option to trace it, which will be checking it in the later sections. That's the reason why I didn't explain the reference rules. If you want to understand the reference rule, you just need to trace it and understand where exactly that activity is being called by those classes. We'll be covering it in the next lecture. Okay, and if we go back to the actions, these are versions. If you can relate these versions, yesterday we have created branch, right? In the branch, we have created multiple rule sets. In rule sets, we have multiple versions, right? Let me refresh this one. I don't think that's the bank. Let me switch to OBC load application. Going to application definition. This is the one which we worked right yesterday. Go here. You can see in the first versions, the first version 010102, you have one rule. This is a testing branch. We have this main rule. So after we decided not to have this py label as value, we decided to have it as value list. So what we have done, we have migrated that rule to the highest version. Here, we migrated the py value to value list. Now if you want to find what are the versions that are present for that rule, you can just click actions, go view versions. You can see that is present in 010103, that is present in 010102, and that is also present in the branch. This is the branch which we created. If you can go here, this is the branch. In this branch also we are having these rules. So if you want to understand in which version this rule is present or where exactly this rule is present, either it can be in branch or it can be in different versions, you can get it from the version tab. This is what about versions. And Weave XML, which we have already understood. In Weave XML, you will be getting all the attribute values. If you want to find what is the attribute value that is defined for that property, you can get it from Weave XML. If you click on Weave Java, as we know, the Pega is a functionality which is built on Java. So whatever the code that you develop in Pega, in the backend, Pega will convert into Java. So Java is the interface which Pega has opted it. What are the things that you update on the front end? Each and everything will be captured in the backend as Java. So for each and every rule, you can find the Java code. This is Java code that is being generated by Pega in the backend. We don't need this. Okay, if you want to understand, you can go through it. But it's not we'll be not going for any Java code because Pega will take care of the Java code. For any rule, if you want to understand what is the Java code that is present for that rule, just go and click on view Java. Get help. If you want to get help of this when rule, so if you are connected to the internet, You'll be getting the information of when rule from Pega systems here. See Pega documentation, you're getting it here. If you are working on any application, okay, if you're working on any application and you are facing some issue with or difficulty with one of the rule, instead of searching that rule from directly going to the Chrome and searching it, or instead of you open that PDF, you can directly get the documentation here. You can search what are the thing that you want to do. If you want WinRule, you can get the PDF here. If you want the activity rule, you can get everything. So this is nothing but Pega integrated with this third party URL here, which will provide us a document bundle which you can download and learn it. Get help is something like that. Create, if you want to create new instance of this rule, you can create it. That's all about the actions tab. And save tab is something if you want to
View siblings.
okay, view siblings, I missed it. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, if I click view siblings, you can see this OBC loan app and OBC loan branch. Similarly, like questions, if consider let this rule is there in different rule set. You can see this rule set belongs to OBC loan app. The same rule present in the other rule set that falls under sibling. Okay, let's consider the same rule testing branch is present in this rule set called OBC loan app. If that same rule is present in OBC loan in the other rule set, we call them as siblings. Okay. If they belong to different rule sets, we call them as siblings. If they belong to different versions, we will be getting it from view versions tab. Both looks like similar, but the thing that you need to understand is that view versions will provide you the instances of the same rule set, but view siblings is something if that rule belongs to different if there is a rule name in different rule sets, then we call them as siblings. Clear?
What is the use of the P is the dynasty?
Yeah, pz key, correct. So let's understand each and every rule will have pz key. Okay, if you want to, we have an activity separate section where if you want to modify any rule, okay, or if you want to modify any case id, let's consider you are an end user and report an issue saying that the total amount that is displayed for you have ordered all the items in your cart. Okay, the value of the cart that is being displayed only to you is you added three items, 300 rupees, 200 rupees, 100 rupees. Let's consider you have added items and it's displaying as 600 rupees. At the time of payment, it's asking for you to pay him 650 rupees. There is some issue at your end regarding payment. Okay, the amount that is being displayed for the end user is it's adding 50 rupees more compared to the previous value. So what happens for you, if you can consider the amount as the PZ key. So for each and every rule, we'll be having the PZ key. The amount is a property which stores the value. So instead of it showing 600, it's showing 650, and this issue is only observed for you. In order to solve it temporarily, what they will be doing it, they'll be updating the property value to match the value that needs to be paid by you. To have that into that, if you want to modify it, what they will do, they will open the pz key of that property. If you talk about the amount, they will hard code in such a way that they will be assigning that value as 600. Okay, what is the value that is there earlier as 650? They will be updating it using an activity. We'll be talking about how we will be resolving that using an activity in separate lecture. For now, just understand, if you want to modify any property rule in Pega, it's very important for you to identify which rule you want to modify. As already mentioned, precedence key is a unique key which identifies different rules. In our case, you want to modify the amount property. You will take the precedence key of the amount. You will be using property set and you will be mapping value to 600 instead of 650. Now, whenever the user try to refresh it from his end the production environment, now he will be having the value set to 600, not 650. Then he can pay the amount. Got it? That's where the precedence key comes into picture. Not only in this case, it can be any case. If you want to fetch case IDs that are being created in a report definition, you can use a precedence key. If you want to open any class instance of that particular, you can use precedence key. In report definitions, we'll be using precedence key. In activities, we'll be using precedence key, which we have separate lectures for it. Okay, clear?
Yes.
That's great. So next, move to the next topic. Ways to create a new rule. This is also very important. What are the ways? If this is an interview question that was asked by an individual person who is having experience of 2 years. It's a simple question that is being asked to him, that how to create a rule, what are the ways to create a rule. Okay, this question comes to you. What you can do, we have first thing that you can understand is that we have all the rules, all the rule types are present in this records tab. The first approach that you can do is to create any, if you want to create any rule, let's consider I want to create a case type rule. You can open it from records tab, go here. The first way is to have, you can use this create option. Okay, navigate to the app explorer, navigate to the configuration panel, open records, select the rule type which you want to create, just create. You can just click this create option to create any rule. Okay, this is the first way that will create any rule. There is other way, you have this create, this is the create panel. From here also you can create any rule. Okay, application definition, you need to navigate the same way that you're navigating here. You can navigate again to the case types. Again, it will open the same thing where you will be, they will be asking how to create. It will show the instances first here in the records tab. You have this option create, but here you will directly open the create tab. This is the other way that you can create a rule. The third way is to open any rule. Let's consider you want to create a case type rule. Instead of you using create option here, if you can open any case type, your option is called save as. You can use save as option and you can create the rule. Okay, we have multiple ways to create rule. It's very important for you to address at least 2 to 3 things. If someone asks you how to create a rule, either you can mention them that we have a create tab, we can create it from here. Either open the records tab from the configuration panel and create that rule from there, or else open any instance of that rule, do save as. These are the ways that we can create any rule. Okay,
What is the best way to create that rule?
best way to create that rule. Okay, so let's consider you have created one rule. Okay, value finder. So let's leave about this one. I will show you the best scenario. We have decision, go to decision, we have when rule. I'll just take one when rule. Okay, you are creating this when rule. So whenever you create any rule, I mentioned first it will ask for the rule set, which rule set that this belongs to and which class. This is very important for you to have this. So mandatory fields. So at the time of creation, it's very important for you to understand which rule set does that rule belong to and which class you are going to put into. If you're having any branches, you can use branches. If not, if you're selecting it has no branch, it will show you the versions here. Ideally, we'll be not creating any rule directly into the versions in real time. So as we have already thought, we will be creating that in the branch itself. Let's do it. I've just given it as this one. BC test. This is the development branch. Can be any branch. Create any branch here. Now see what happens. Now I have py value. Just take any property. STL. So this is the first way. So first this we can create it from records tab. Now what happens? Now here comes the ideal picture. Now you want to create when rule for test B, test C, test D, test D. Okay, this is a scenario where you want to create test B, test C, test D for py value label. So instead of you going and creating it from here, the best thing is to directly do save as, because the rule set remains same, the class remains same. The only thing that's getting modified is the py value label. You can directly click save as from here. Everything will remain same. Test when 2. This is for the py label test B. If you want to use or if you want to use already the existing when rule or any rule, you can the best way is to do save as of that rule. If you want to use already, if you want to use or if you want to have the instance of all the rule which is already created, you can directly use save as of that rule. This is the ideal approach. And if you want to create any rule, you can use anything. You can directly navigate from here or you can navigate it from here. They will not both remain same, but the ideal picture comes whenever if you want to use the rule which is already there in Pega, do save as. Okay. These are the things that way to create a rule. And if you go to the next tab, that is rule sets in Pega. If application is to be tagged to rule set. As mentioned, each and everything in Pega is built on rules, and all these rules should comes under a package called rule sets. Okay, we'll be having multiple rule sets. If you are having 40 rules in Pega or the application that you built, all these 40 rules needs to be tagged to at least one rule set. Not at least one rule set, should have a rule set specified. That's how the Pega application works. Pega will pull the rule sets. Pega, what application will do? Application will call the application definition. Application definition will call the rule sets. Rule sets will pick the rule. This is how Pega is developed. So it's very important for you to have each and every rule that defined in the rule set. Okay, and package the rules. Each and every rule set contain each and every rule set we call it as a package, which contains the list of rules. If you go back here, if I open the rule set, as mentioned, this application, what Pega will do, application will call the application definition. Application definition, it will call the rule sets which are there in their application. If we consider the first rule set, we package of all the rules. We can see the rule count that is there for this rule set is 21. So we can call it as all these 21 rules are there in the package of OBC loan app. Okay, all these 21 rules are there in the package of OBC loan app. Similarly, if you go back here, open this integration layer. We are having three rules. All these three rules forms a package of which application rule set OBC loan app int. So it's very important whenever you create any rule in Pega, that will take one rule set version and that will go and sit there. It's because the reason being application definition will call the rule sets at the runtime. If that rule is present in the rule set, then it will pick that rule. It's very important that each and every rule in Pega will be stacked in application rule set. Then rule sets provide version control. It's very important, which we have discussed yesterday, that we will be having versions control. 010101 is the starting version whenever you develop new changes. 010102 is the next sprint development stories, comes under 010102, 010103. So if you are keeping on incrementing the rule set versions, the highest the rule set version, it means the highest the privilege of application is increasing. So if you are developing new application, new features are getting installed in your application, you'll be going to the new rule set versions. So rule set supports the rule set versioning, which is very crucial in Pega development. And secure the rules. What is secure the rules? If you can see here in this one, if you consider the rule set, we have locked two rule sets, right? This we have locked this 010101, we have locked 010102. Now we are working on 010103. Correct? So securing the rules is nothing but you are acquiring lock on those rules so that no one will modify that rule. If you open this rule, the one that is not locked, this is the rule which is not locked, you can directly edit it because this is not locked. If you go back here and open any rule which is locked, if you try to open any rule which is locked, you can see it acquired a lock. Correct? So the rule sets provide a security so that if you want to modify any rule, if it is in locked, you cannot modify it until the rule set version is unlocked. If you want to modify this rule, you need to do save as of this rule in the highest version or check out to the branch. If you want to modify any rule which is in lock, the first way is to unlock that rule which is not recommended and which is not a bad practice at all. If your code is there in the first version, and if we are in the 67th version, if you want to modify the rule which is in the first version, is a bad practice and not suggested by Pega. Ideal scenario in the real time, what you will be doing it, you will be saving as that rule in the highest version. This is the first way, and this is also not recommended because directly you can't save as any rule in the highest version because first you need to test it. After testing, after code review is done, then only you will be moving into the highest version. If someone asks you what is the best approach, there are no two or three approaches. There is only one approach. The first and foremost thing that you need to do is to save as the tool in your branch. This is the ideal scenario, and this is the only scenario which you need to tell to any interviewer. The first and foremost scenario, which everyone tells, is that to save as to unlock the rule, which is not a good practice at all. Either they will tell you to save as the tool in the highest version. This is also not bad. This is also bad practice. There is only one approach. The ideal approach is to save as that rule into the branch. Make all the development in your branch. After you developed it, After you test it, after code review, then you will be deploying the code. This is what we have seen yesterday, and this is the only scenario if someone asks you how you will develop an application. You need to mention them that if you got any story that is assigned on your name, if even though if you didn't understand what is the requirement, or even though you didn't understand what needs to be done, the first and foremost thing that you need to do is to create a branch, and whatever the rules that you want to develop in your application, you will be creating or saving as those rules in your branch. This is the only scenario which you need to tell to the interviewer. Someone asks you in an interview, is it an ideal way to unlock any rule? You need to tell, so it's not an ideal way. If you want to modify any existing rule, you need to save as it in your branch, test it, then deploy it. Clear? There comes the picture of securing the logs. Securing the logs is very important, because let's consider an application. If there are 30 people working on the application development, we should not allow any individual to modify the existing rules without testing it. As the production environment is used by many people, it's very crucial for us to maintain the application performance and application scalability and testing. So it's very important for you to maintain the application performance. At that time, if someone modifies all the existing rules, and if that is not working as expected, what happens? The chance of application performance, there's a chance in reduction of application performance, and sometimes application may go down, which will impact the end users. That's the reason why we should not modify any rule which is there in the existing rule sets. Check out to the branch, develop it, test it, make it a code review is done from your lead, then only deploy the code. And the deployment should happen for the highest version. So after testing is done from the branch, you need to move the tool to the highest version. That's how we'll be working on the real-time application development. Design time validation. We are having two different types of validations. We are having application validation and rule set validation. Before I jumping into this topic, if you're having any doubts still here, either can be rule sets or rule types, let me know. We can discuss it here before we jump to the new topic. I consider it as no. So we are having two different types of validation. The first one is the application validation. The second is the rule set validation. Okay. What happens here? Whenever you create any rule set, okay, whenever you create any rule set, what Pega will do, it will set as an application validation. The reason being, you can refer the rules in the same layer or below layer. I will be showing you demo of application validation, rule set validation. Just understand, if the rule set is specified as application validation, it means that you can refer the rules in the same layer. So if you're having the same layer, you can refer the same rules in same layer or the below layer. It will not throw any error. The rule set validation, it is quite opposite to application validation. So if you're using rule set validation, it will throw an error. For that error to be, if you want to remove that error, you need to specify the rule set. It will be very easy if I explain you the demo. I will just go back to the Dev Studio. What I will do, close all these things. If I just go to the application definition, go back to application definition here, we have these rule sets, right? Open one rule set. I'm having this rule set. I will open other rule set called OBC loan app int. Okay, we're having two rule sets here. I'm having OBC loan app is the one rule set. I'm having OBC loan app int the other rule set. What I will do? So in order to test it, let's have one activity or any rule. So if you can have an activity, in activity we can call other activity. In data transfer we call other data transfer. For testing, for understanding this scenario, either create an activity or data transfer. Now I'm going with activity. What I am doing, test validation. I'm creating test validation. Okay. Let's have this in the OBC loan app. I want this to be present in OBC loan app rule set. I'm just giving it as no branch for now. And this is in 010103 version. I'm just saving this one. Now you can see we are having an activity in OBC loan app rule set, right? Test validation. Now let's have an other activity created in the integration rule set. Let's create it in this rule set. Okay. What is the first thing that I have done? Just create two activities in order to understand rule set validation and application validation. The simple thing that you need to do is to create two rules, same rule types. I've created an activity in this. I've created one activity which comes under OBS loan app rule set, and I've created another activity that comes under OBS loan app int. You can open this test validation. This is there in rule set called OBS loan app. This is there in rule set called OBS loan app int. Now what happens? And these both are in the same layer. Now what I will do? You have an option in Pega to call activity. You have this call activity feature where you can call activity. I'm calling this activity called test validation new. When you try to save it, you're not getting any error. Correct? The similar way, if you go here and call activity, that is there is the same layer, you're not getting any error. The reason being the rule set validation that is selected for both of them is the application validation. If you go here and see, this is selected as application validation, and here this is selected application validation. So Pega in the backend will take care of the validation. If it is selected application validation, it means that you can call any rule which is there in the same layer or the below layer. Now what happens if this validation is the rule set validation and specifying this as rule set validation? Now what you can see, we are having this OBC loan app. So we need to specify at least one rule set versions. Now I'm deleting it. I want the error that needs to be replicated to error. What I will do, just delete it. Now you can see this rule set can only refer the rules that are present in these rule sets. Okay, these rule sets can refer the rules that are present only this rule set, and if any rule that is not there in this rule sets, Pega will not allow to save it. If you go back here, the test validation is present in this rule set called OBC loan app. Okay, and this is selected as rule set validation. So what Pega will do, if you want to call any other rule, it will only pick the rules that are present in Theme Cosmos rules and OBC rule set. If you go here, we are calling which rule test validation new. Where exactly this is present? This is present in other rule sets which we didn't specify in the rule set validation. Now go and try to save it. Pega throws an error saying that the validation, we are getting a validation saying that this is not supported. Got it? Ideally, whenever we create any rule set, if it is any rule set in Pega, what Pega will do, it will create the rule set of type application validation. Okay, if you are selecting rule set validation, in a majority of the application that we develop, will be not giving rule set validation. Okay, if just I'm giving an example where if you are selecting test rule set validation, now what happens? I'm giving this one. I'm giving this rule set here. Now go back. I'm saving it here. I'm going here and saving it. Now you can see error got removed. That's where the rule set validation comes into picture. So it's very important. So whenever you create any rule set, ideal scenario, it will be application validation. Even in real time, if someone asks you, if your manager or team did assign your task or a story to create a rule set, acha, abhi just create one rule set in Pega. Okay, let's all work on that rule set. What you will be doing it? You will be creating a rule set, and that rule set will be in application validation mode, not in rule set validation mode. Reason being, it's very important for you to have the rules that needs to be used, which are in the same layer. If you're not using the rules in the same layer, what is the meaning of application reusability and reusability? We'll be not using rule set validation until and unless there's a requirement for that to be used. Ideal scenario will be going with application validation. If the rule is defined as rule set validation, if you want to have access of the rules in the same layer, that should be specified in the required rule set. If you're not specifying it here, and if you're trying to use it, then Pega will throw an error saying that this not falls under the right path. That's all about the rule set validation. This is very important question. This is being asked by many individuals. They will ask you, they will be giving a scenario. First, they will be asking you what are the rule set types. So what are the validation modes that are present in Pega? You should be in a position to tell that there are two validations, that is application validation and rule set validation. They will ask you what is an application validation. They will ask you the ideal one. Ideal one will be application validation. Why? The reason being, we need to reuse the rules in the same layer. So that's the reason why we'll be having an application validation selected. What is a rule set validation? Why rule set validation have some impact? Not impact. Why there are some prerequisites, or why there is a limitation in the rule set validation? The reason being, if you want any rule that needs to be called in the rule set, if it is specified as rule set validation, then that rule should be select that the rule set should be selected in the rule set. That rule set should be selected here so that that can be used. Now I'm saving it here. I'm going here and just saving it. Yeah, yeah. Got it? That's very important. This very important thing. So far we have covered many important questions for today's class. That is, if you talk about here, what are the rule types that
So,
are present in Pega? Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
in what scenarios do we use that rules of validation? Because you said application validation is the best way. But why do they have the
Yeah,
rules
we
of
tell you.
validation?
Correct. So let's consider there is a layer. If we this is the thing which we have created, right? This Pega is created automatically. If you go and check the organization one that is being created by Pega, Pega automatically set it to rule set validation. The reason being the organization structure, the organization layer, it will create an organization layer. The organization layer should not use any rules. So there should not be a privilege for organization rule set to be used. At the time, the reason being the organization one should have a rule set validation. The organized instances should use only the rules that are specified. In order to avoid discrepancies, whatever the organization that Pega organize only for the organization layers, especially for organization layers, Pega provide it as a rule set validation. Whenever you create any application, if you go and check any application, so in offline, whenever you create an application, we have this organization defined when at the time of creation, right? At that time, whatever the organization that are there in Pega, those organizations will have validation as rule set validation. Okay. This organization layers will not be using any other rule. That's what Pega decided so that it will avoid discrepancies. We'll be having a look into this as well. So why Pega specified rule set validation for this organization layer? So if someone asks you, so what the reason being Pega providing rule set validation, you need to tell them that. For now, you need to tell them that for all the organization layers that Pega create, the organization rule set which Pega create, Pega will set it to rule set validation. The reason being organization layer should not use any other rules not to avoid discrepancies. This organization layer is a main layer which will have an impact on all the rules that are there in the down the layer. That's the reason why Pega specified organization layer as a rule set validation. Clear?
If you create another application
Mm-hmm.
in a different organization, can
Mm-hmm.
we specify that organization rule set in here in the prerequisites of this rule set?
No. So if you are creating another application, other application will have their own rule sets. Okay. So if you want to
Yeah.
have different rule sets, if you want to have the usage of the rules in different applications, there comes the enterprise or there comes the framework layer, right? If there are different applications, it means that this is the this is the implementation layer. If you are creating another application, that falls under other implementation layer. If you want to have the reusability of these rules, it's very important for you to have it in the framework layer or the components. So you can see the built-in application theme Cosmos. If you want to have the same rules that are, so we have OBC Loan App India, OBC Loan App US. You are having two different applications. OBC Loan App India, OBC Loan App US. Now if you want to have the rules that are common in OBC Loan App India and OBC Loan App US, you need to have a built-on application or framework application on the top so that you can use that tool in the different application rule sets. Ideally, what are the questions that you have asked? It will not solve the issue. You cannot call an organization of one application into the other organization layer. If you want to use those rules, you need to have an enterprise component on the top, which can be used by the different implementation layers. Clear? Okay. I just want you to note down few questions or just keep an eye of it. What are the rule types that are present in Pega? Which rule type we'll be using for different scenarios? This can be a question. What is the use of pizza dance key? Whenever you create any rule, it's important for you to select the right stack. Then we have understood what is the rule set. Okay, what are the rule set versions? What is the importance of securing the rules? Okay, validations which are also important. Validation types. What's an application validation? What's a rule set validation? You need to have an example in your mind when someone asks you to explain them. These are the questions for today which we have covered for an interview as well. And this is the and for from tomorrow we'll be learning the case types. So we will be having a separate lecture tomorrow on developer action. This is very important. For tomorrow's class, we'll be coming up with the developer actions that are present in Pega, that is checkout feature, check-in feature, and private edit feature. What are the differences? What we need to do in the real-time environment? These are three things which we'll be learning for tomorrow's class. Post this class, we will be going to the case management. From there, I want everyone to pitch in yourself and start developing your own application. For tomorrow, we'll be having developer actions. From day after tomorrow, we'll be having case management part one. It means that we'll be creating a new case lifecycle. We need to understand each and everything that are there in the case components. And I will be providing you some story point. I will be giving some Jira stories to you. Whenever I start developing a case management part one, I'll be providing you the hands-on one rule by creating an application, and I want you to create the same type of rule in your own application, in your own personal edition. Whatever that story that I have given you, I will be giving it as a documentation. That's how the real-time development looks like. I will be giving a documentation. I will prepare a documentation. You need to understand each and everything, acceptance criteria, description, what is the issue, how we need to resolve. So these are things I will be giving it in a Jira story for you. You need to just understand documentation and work on the development of that application. So from day after tomorrow, we'll be understanding each and every role by designing a case type, and I will also provide the documentation to everyone. You need to understand, you need to read it. What are the requirements or what are the acceptance criteria I have given to you? You need to match them while creating an application development in the personal edition. That's all about today's class. Any doubts?
When we create that application, it automatically Pega setting a rule set validation, right? We want to change to application validation.
I didn't get you. You're telling?
After creating application, that Pega itself
Select application
selecting the
validation.
rule
Yeah.
set.
If it is not an organization layer, okay. If it is not an organization layer, or if it is not related to organization rule set, all other rule sets Pega will set to application validation. Only the organization layers, when Pega creates it, it will set to rule set validation.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for joining the session. I will be uploading the video into the drive. Just go through it. Let's catch up tomorrow the same Josh. Let's understand the developer actions that are very important for the crucial business. Later we will be working case management lifecycle part one. Okay. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. Bye bye.